It's midweek Wednesday. Today is August 27th, 2025. We've been with you for 5 years and 24 days. And there are a couple of signatory topics that we've always talked about in the garden, among them being child care, family support, mental health awareness, suicide awareness, and of course, domestic abuse. Domestic abuse, domestic violence, intimate partner violence, however you want to term it, that is a big one for me. And that is the main reason why I am here this morning. So yesterday, I was taken down. I was taken down because of a number of posts I had read on social media coming from media houses in one of our Caribbean nations, more particularly Guyana, Republic of Guyana. And I even chanced upon seeing at least 2 videos, and they really broke me. They broke me because once again we are seeing, we are witnessing the impact, the result, the effect, the repercussion, what comes out of a domestic abuse situation. And of course, I do not have the full details of everything. So I want to be very careful as to what I say. I do not have everything down packed. But from what I've seen, the videos that I saw, the little exposés that I read, I am really heartbroken. I am heartbroken because a woman, allegedly a beautiful, intelligent, skilled woman, is no more, allegedly having been expired at the hands of her partner. A young child is now an orphan because both his parents are no more. A young child has been seriously injured by one of his parents, and we do not know the status of his condition. Family members in mourning, friends surprised and hurt. A workplace has lost a good employee. A school has lost one of its, has not lost, but a school has now a student who is going through a terrible ordeal. And I am certain that other children themselves will undoubtedly be traumatized. The new school year is about to start in many countries in the region, and a young man, according to reports, having just passed his primary exit exams, will not be able to be part of his new secondary life in the initial stages because he now has to go through a recovery process. He now has to deal with the emotional trauma, according to reports again, of having seen his mom been expired. by the hands of his father, having to deal himself with being injured by his father? Is he prepared to deal with whatever will come out of that entire situation? What will become of his interactions? What will become of how he sees being a man? What will become of how he views relationships? What will become of his tenure as a student? Will he be able to cope? Will he be successful? What about family support? What about how he will be viewed by his peers? Just how will this young child go through his upcoming teenage years, his life, having seen what he saw, having went through what he would have gone through, having himself been a victim of domestic abuse, a horrid injury at the hand of someone who should have been his protector. What is his outlook going to be on life? Parents. And of course, I'm not now talking about the incident that I read about. I'm now talking to parents as it relates to how we show up for our children. How do we ourselves deal with our own trauma and our own emotional well being so that we do not bleed on our children, so that we make it a safe place. We make home a safe space for them. We make the world a one that is more manageable for them because of what we've taught them and how we ourselves would have interacted with them. My heart is with this young man. My heart is with his peers, even. And now I'm thinking about that young, vibrant woman who hadn't imagined that this would have been how it played out for her. And again, because I don't have the details and I do not want to speak out of turn and ignorantly, I'm very careful as to what I say. But from all the reports that I've read, we once again are looking at a reoccurrence of a domestic abuse situation. A situation where a pattern had been seen running for a while, and obviously the adults surrounding this pattern weren't adequately able to handle the situation. And so now I'm speaking to us, adult men and women who are in relationships, whether it be a marital union or a common law situation or even a visiting relationship. I'm talking to us because there is absolutely, unequivocally very solidly, absolutely no excuse for domestic abuse. I've written a number of poems on or touching domestic abuse, and it saddens me every time I see another case coming up, and I know that we don't always see what's going on with an individual inside, in their head. We don't always know, as I alluded to a few days ago when I made a post and I talked about not always knowing what's going on with the individuals with whom we reside, not fully understanding and knowing the other person. But I dare say that there are always telltale signs. There are always telltale signs as to what a person may want to do. And it may be very difficult for us to unentangle ourselves once we would have gotten into certain situations. And I know that there are ways we can try to do that. And indeed, it is quite difficult on occasions. But my concern is even prior, and I'm talking now broadly to us adults, male and female, about conversations. And of course, I'm talking also about the heart. In one of my other posts, I did mention that the heart is the seat of our being, the core of who we are. And what is it in our hearts? How honest are we when we interact with individuals on an intimate level? What is it that's going on with us? I need us to search ourselves as humans. I'm thinking about the male perpetrator who then turned on himself, allegedly, according to reports, and would have expired his own being. And again, there could be arguments that the individual perhaps did that so as not to face the charges. The individual could have done that because he didn't know what else to do, or the individual could have done that because he was downright a wicked and deceitful being. We simply don't know what it was, but it is not a good thing. And again, the idea of suicide comes up. The idea of self-care and mental health, taking care of ourselves, getting in touch with our emotions, knowing what it is that pushes us over the edge, knowing when the ants are trying to get all over us, knowing when we feel like butterflies in the rain. And those of you who would have read my previous posts would know what I'm talking about when I say ants are all over us and we are feeling like butterflies in the rain, knowing what draws us into that space and making solid attempts to help ourselves, as adults, so that in dire circumstances, we do not go the other route that leaves others in so much pain. And then, of course, There is the idea of family, family support, family interaction. What do families know? How are they adding fuel to the fire? How are they fanning the flames to make it burn more? Or how are they trying to out and curtail or minimize situations when they occur or even prior to their occurring? Who are we as humans? As if COVID-19 had told us nothing. I just want us today to think more about taking care of ourselves, knowing who we are, knowing that we cannot control another human, but we can only take care of ourselves, knowing that human dignity is something that should be afforded to every human, and knowing that when the Bible says that the heart of man is deceitful and desperately wicked above all things, that is not a fallacy. That is a fact. Knowing that children are loaned to us and it is our responsibility to take care of them, protect them, as opposed to abusing them and letting them see abuse. And then, of course, even hurting them in the worst ways. There's so much more I could say, but I think I'll stop now because this is really difficult. This is really hard. The videos in particular really shook me. Humans, adults, let us do some introspection. It's called Wellness Wednesdays at times. As we think about our own wellness, let us think of self introspection and starting the first step in learning who we are and making solid attempts to do better for ourselves and even for those that we purport to love.